Hiring a Google Ads consultant, that can feel like a massive step for your business, right? But here's the thing. If you choose the wrong one, you're not just, standing still. You're literally setting your money on fire. So how can you spot a bad consultant before they totally clean you out? All right, let's get into it. And this quote, wow, it just nails the problem, doesn't it? Imagine this. A business owner sits through what's supposed to be some advanced strategy session, but they walk away with, what, a bunch of buzzwords and absolutely zero real strategy. It's a frustration so many of us have felt, and it's exactly the kind of thing we're here to avoid. Look, the real issue here isn't just that you're not getting results. It's way worse. A bad consultant is actively wasting your ad spend on strategies that were, honestly, doomed from the very beginning. They take your money, they hand you a list of excuses, and they leave you in a worse spot than when you started.
Okay, so let's start digging into the actual warning signs, and we're going to start with the absolute biggest one. If a consultant isn't completely obsessed with your data, you should be very, very concerned.
Let's just be blunt here. A consultant's very first move should always be to ask for your data. I'm talking customer profiles, past campaign numbers, market research, the whole shebang. They have to understand who they're actually talking to. If they just waltz in, talk about their years of experience, and are ready to spend big bucks without that foundation, they're not an expert. They're just gambling with your money. So take a second and ask yourself this. Did they promise you the moon on that very first call? I mean, confidence is great. We love confidence. But confidence without any evidence to back it up, that is a massive, flashing red flag. All right, so let's say a campaign is launched, and the results are not great. What the consultant does next is incredibly telling, and that brings us right to our second red flag. And here's the critical difference, you guys. A good consultant, they own the results. They're going to talk about what they can control and how they're going to adjust the plan. But a bad one? Oh, they become a master of excuses. They'll blame Google's algorithm, the market, the weather, anything but their own strategy. It's always, always the system's fault. This is such a crucial insight. Think about it. The more time your consultant spends explaining why things aren't working with all these complex reasons and flimsy excuses, the less you should trust them. Real partners, people who are confident in their work, they don't need these long monologues to justify themselves. The results, or at least the solid plan to get results, should really speak for themselves. So you really got to pay close attention to the language they're using. If your meetings are just filled with jargon like click-through rate and bid strategy, and they never connect it back to what you actually care about, things like business results and customer acquisition, then they're just hiding behind complexity. You want a partner who speaks your language, and that language is the language of growth. And this use of vague, jargony language, it often points to an even deeper problem. And that brings us to red flag number 3. They just don't get your customer. And believe me, you can see it plain as day in the ads they write. The source we're looking at points to real estate ads as the perfect example of this. They are so often filled with this fluffy, cringeworthy marketing speak like premium lifestyle or innovative design. I mean, come on, real customers don't search for those terms. They have specific needs, they have specific budgets. Using these buzzwords is just a surefire way to burn cash on clicks from people who are never, ever going to buy. So here's the key takeaway, right? Effective marketing isn't about sounding fancy. Not at all. It's about clear, simple communication. Does your consultant truly understand the real value you're offering? And maybe more importantly, can they explain that value in an ad in a way a real human being would actually understand? If the answer is no, they are failing at the most basic part of their job. Okay, so what happens when all the excuses finally run out? This is the last and maybe the most insulting red flag of them all. After the campaign has totally tanked, the blame, it shifts directly to you. And this timeline? Oh, it's just all too common, isn't it? It starts with these huge promises, right? Then, as the poor results start trickling in, the excuses about the system begin. And what's the grand finale? They tell you the problem wasn't their strategy at all. Nope, it was your product, or your pricing, or your competition the entire time. And here's the bottom line on that. Any consultant worth their salt analyzes the market and the competition before they even dream of proposing a strategy. That's literally part of the job. Bringing it up at the very end isn't some deep insight. It's just an admission that they didn't do their homework in the first place. Whew. Okay, we've covered a lot of red flags. But how do you actually put this all into practice? Well, we've turned these warnings into a super simple checklist you can use to hold your consultant accountable starting today.
Just use this as your guide. For every single strategic choice, ask them, hey, what data is supporting this? If you don't understand something they're saying, demand they explain it in plain English in business terms. When results are down, don't accept excuses, insist on a plan for what they are going to do differently. And definitely review that ad copy. Does it sound like a real person talking? And finally, make absolutely sure they did their market analysis before they started spending your money, not after everything's gone wrong.
Because in the end, it all just boils down to this one simple question. Is your consultant actually building your business, or are they just building their invoice? It's a tough question, but you've got to know which one you're working with.